Hi, welcome back
Yeah.
to Boisterous. I'm Brayette,
I'm far.
and today we're going to be getting more into our childhood and kind of how each of us grew up. We come from very different backgrounds, so we're just going to dive into it and pretty much talk about how those different backgrounds kind of shaped who we are today as women. And so basically for me personally, my parents were never married, so I'm a bastard, and they broke up when I was 3 years old. So I've never really had like two parents in the same household, like mom and dad in the same home type of idea, the traditional way here in the US. So I kind of struggled with that growing up. I went to a little private school in Lansing called Montessori. If you know it, it was a good little school, but um, me and one other person were the only two kids with parents who weren't married. So like that was
Crazy.
kind of like one of the like weirdest things to me, because like I feel like not many people like were trying to get a divorce and stuff like that. So it was less common. I feel like 20 some years ago. So now I feel like it's not that
Dang,
big of a
20 some years ago. Can you believe that right now?
deal. About to be 23.
I know. Next week.
I know. I feel like it's way more common for people not to be together. Everyone has like blended families now, so it's like way more accepting. But that kind of I always had like kind of like a wishful thinking in that case. Like I really wish my parents were together.
That's
I
almost every kid. Like, I mean, I feel like almost every kid wants to have their parents
I
together. Like, it's
know.
my mommy and daddy.
Exactly. Like that was my mentality as a kid. Growing up, I was like, okay, I'm so straight. Like they would have been not put together, like toxic, but pretty much like my dynamic was already having parents that weren't together and basically going from one home to the next. So I had two homes. Those who can relate, it can definitely be stressful, especially when you're a kid having sports in school and stuff, having to literally bring all your stuff from one home the next weekend and then to the other home the next weekend. And so that was already just kind of like annoying and stuff like that. Not only were my parents not in the same household, but then they also had their own relationships in the household as well. So I kind of got to see like three different dynamics of a relationship, which kind of shaped who I am today. So, what about you? Like, how did you grow up and how your parents were?
So, as you guys know, obviously, I don't look white. I'm joking, but I'm originally from Bangladesh. I was born there. So my parents are. If you guys don't know where Bangladesh is, it's like a little country that was part of India, then part of Pakistan, and it broke apart and had its independence. So
Let us
there's
know, sis. Let us know the history.
and so my parents had a traditional arranged marriage. And if you guys don't know what that is, it's literally what it sounds like. They didn't have a love marriage. What it was my dad saw my mom and he was like, that's who I want. He went and talked to my grandparents and they're like, oh, you going to America? You good? My mom checked him out and she was like, he decent, I guess. And they got together.
Okay, so your dad was already okay, so they met in Bangladesh, but your dad was already in transition to go to the US.
Yes. He was already in transition to go to the US. My mom was 19. My dad was about, I think, 21, 24, one of those.
Okay.
And and like back home, that's like the age that they got married. This was like way back in the 90s, I believe.
Right.
So that's how they got married. And then a couple years later, they struggled a lot to have me. But once they had me, we moved to America. And honestly, that's where I saw like everything that like how what I witnessed and how I became from what they are. So traditionally my parents are, like I said, in an arranged marriage, meaning they weren't in love when they got married. It was for practicality reasons. They were just filling their deen, and if you guys know what that is, it's part of Islam. It's your obligation in your world. So they got married and then they had me, my twin brothers, and then when we got here, they continued to have children and had my baby sister and my baby brother. They were getting it on. Okay?
Yeah, I'm like, you gotta do pop them babies out.
But for me, like the biggest thing for me is, unlike B, like and she'll recount to you, like her relationship with her mom, like she's become more of her mom. And for me, like I tried so hard not to become my mom because of the gender roles like literally forced upon women in our culture. And I don't want to say religion, just because I need to make sure that you guys understand religion and culture is a two different thing. And like in our culture at least, religion is incorporated in our culture, and people make it seem like
Mm,
it's one thing instead of two.
right.
Growing up, like, I've already assimilated. I'm an American. I claim myself as an American because, I mean, this is the only country I know. Like, this is where I grew up. This is how I thrive. This is what I know.
Right.
But like growing up, of course, I also had the traditional mindset. My parents were very, very enforceful on the fact that we're Bengali, we're not American, and we need to like preserve our traditions. And that, as the eldest daughter in the Muslim household, had a huge, huge impact on me. Not only from my perspective of seeing what love is, but I legit didn't want to fall in love. Like I literally did not want to fall in
Really?
love. Yeah, like growing up, I did not like there
Wow.
was at all, like, because I saw the relationship my parents had. Even though it was respectful, it wasn't like my mom had a true voice, like, and that's
Yeah.
something that I absolutely hated. Like I resented my father for it, and I resented her for it because she always tried to imply that that's how my role should be when as I was growing up. Like
Yeah.
she would always say this is a girl's role, like this is what girls do, and I always got frustrated because I'm like, I have three brothers who act like bums, and I'm over here, I'm only 11, and you're telling me I have to do everything because I'm a woman, but they don't. So
Yeah.
that was
It's
always
crazy.
my mission.
I can definitely like obviously from a different way. I get what you're saying. Like we're both the oldest and we're both girls. So
Yeah,
like it's completely different. You know how it is in society. Like there's two different standards between
exactly.
a boy and a girl, man and a woman, right? So I definitely get what you're saying there. I would say for me being the oldest, my parents got together young, just like yours, but
Hmm.
yours, like you said, that was normal for them to get
Yeah.
married at that age. So
Mhm.
it was a little different. I feel like my parents, believe it or not, they did plan to have me, which I just don't believe sometimes, but they said they really did. So I mean, it is what it is. But because they were so young, most people don't plan to have children that young.
Right.
But here I
Hey,
am
you just
today.
never know. Like I know plenty of women our
That's
age
true.
just ready to pop in. I'm like, you go, girl, you do you.
That's true. But I think I was kind of questioning that more because the lack of readiness, in my
Yeah.
opinion, them not having a strong foundation, and that's just is what it is, honestly. Like just making sure that they were very secure together before they brought someone else into the world, which is me.
Right.
But at the end of the day, like I wouldn't have it any other way. I have learned so much, like as a woman, as a child, like just thinking about how I'm gonna be with my future children. Just kind of growing up, like, the things that you see and hear, um, kind of shape who you are, especially like as a woman, like, it's already hard growing up as a woman in the US. And so
Yes.
I feel like you know, we see the fairy tales in the movies and we read the stories about the Cinderellas and all that stuff. And that wasn't reality to me. Like,
No.
my parents already went together, and I definitely didn't see no Cinderella story or
Right.
anything like
Hell
that.
no.
No fairy tale, none of that, no fairy tale. So, you know, it helped me in the long run, now because kind of fast forwarding, I feel like I'm creating my own little fairy tale. You can kind of say in your way. You know, I didn't really see I didn't really see in my opinion what a good strong relationship was. Seeing it from my dad's perspective, there was things that I didn't agree with.
Mhm.
And then seeing it on my mom's perspective, my mom is definitely an alpha male. So
Yes.
shout out to her because she's
An alpha female, bitch.
oh yeah, an alpha female. And so she has taught me like
Shout
just
out to Bridget Yoder.
BG or BY. She's a boss. Like she already knows. But she is definitely the sayer in the relationship. She lets you know what she wants when she wants it and how you're gonna do it, how she likes. And I think that's amazing, especially because like you said, like in your parents'
Yeah, in my dynamic, it's the total opposite.
it's like the complete opposite where you feel like your mom didn't have a voice, and like
Right,
for my mom, she was the only voice.
right.
So, she taught me how to be a strong independent woman. She had that like chip on her shoulder, like you don't need a man for nothing type of
Big
attitude.
shit.
Ain't ish. Like she never said that, but you get that feeling. And so honestly, like when I was kind of growing up, liking boys or whatever, I was like, yes, like boys are cool, whatever, but we don't need them necessarily.
Right.
So that definitely in the beginning of my relationship definitely had an impact because I was very like no, I don't need you to pay for nothing. I can pay for myself type
Exactly.
of attitude. Like I had to grow up, but that's really what it was. And I feel like I was the more boisterous one in the relationship and just kind of
Crazy.
demanded what it was. But it honestly backfired because seeing all that, you have to kind of have like a two-way street, in a relationship, like a give and a take. So I feel like definitely letting the man take the man's role in a relationship is super important,
So huge.
which I had to
Yeah.
learn on my own since I didn't really get to see that in their relationship there. So yeah, I mean
Yeah,
that's
for
kind
me,
of
like for me, it's kind of like the complete opposite. I like in the sense that you chose to kind of follow your mother's traits. I tried, like I said, I tried so hard not to become my mother, not to become like this meat, not to say that my mother is meat. It's more that she believes in her gender role so much that she won't speak up. Like it got to a point where like I started noticing the craziest things. And as I got older, I was just like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you're a grown ass woman. Like, why can you? And it was always like, and I built that animosity towards her. And I saw that, like, I was never gonna get married like this. I was never gonna have a partner like this. Fuck that, fuck this. And the more that
yeah,
I got older, the more that I pushed away from being my mother, the more I realized I was becoming my father, which scared me even more. Like, I love my parents. They're both amazing people in their own way, but like I'm not trying to become them. Like you try so hard to like run away from the things that you don't want to become, that you, if you don't acknowledge it, you become them. And so once I started realizing that instead of taking after my mother, who's just like willing to like do whatever my father says, I was becoming like much more aggressive like my father. And it's so relevant in my current relationship.
yeah.
Shout out to my partner. He does not deserve some of the shit I do to him. But like I'm like the alpha
You're
female.
growing and we're all growing.
Yeah,
That's the thing. Like the amazing part of like this whole thing is we're acknowledging our flaws.
exactly.
A lot of people don't have self-awareness. You know
No,
what I'm saying? So it's amazing that you're acknowledging that and noticing that before it got too late and you're in
no,
your
it's
40s
like
and you're like, all
it's
right,
so important. It's so important to do it, and I really hope he appreciates that I try my hardest to like acknowledge the bullshit I put on, and then like actually work towards a better future. But the thing is, I legit went from being like not being meek to being like overtly like aggressive. Like I was literally your mom. Like I was the voice. You had to do the things my way or the highway. Like
yes, oh my God, literally her.
my way or the highway. And it was like when we first got together, like he tolerated it. And I was just like, and when he tolerated that, I was seeing my parents' relationship in reverse roles.
Right.
I was just like, and that's once I realized that, and once I realized how deeply invested I was in this, I was like, no way am I gonna like build a toxic foundation. Because if we have a toxic
Mhm.
foundation, like we'll talk in our later video, it's literally going to make sure that when you do come across those struggles with your partner, you
Mhm.
won't be able to go past them because of the resentment you built in the beginning. So once I acknowledged that, instead of becoming like my mother, I was becoming like my father. I went into like crazy mode. I was like, oh my God, I can't go like this. Like, I can't become this aggressive person who doesn't let my partner have a voice, who demands that everything has to go their way. And honestly, I can't blame my father either personally, because this is all they knew. They're in a whole different country by themselves, and they're freshly married couple. Like, I didn't mention this to you guys, but like, so my parents got married young, but my father moved away like for like 10 years. So I was born in Bangladesh. Me and my twin brothers were born in Bangladesh. I moved here when I was 3 years old. So my mom lived like, with my dad's family back home, and then she would obviously
Oh,
go back to her house.
so once you guys were born, he left?
Yeah, he brought us here because obviously he moved there young, and then like he was saving up money, getting ready to like bring us over. And we
Right.
didn't come till like I turned 3. So my mother was actually apart from my father for a long time. He would come visit, and honestly, like, obviously I see the respect. My parents are actually so cute. Like, when they were not dating, but like, that phase when he was away, he would
Yeah.
record his voice, and she would record her voice, and I heard those videotapes, and they're very respectful to each other. But like I said, I want passion, like, and there isn't passion. There's this practicality, and it's working for them. But it's also like, I'm the one growing up in it, and I see the horrible like mismatches that come by, and that's something that I don't want. I fought so hard not to want it, and
Well,
I
let me ask
became
you
so.
this. Let me
Uh-huh.
ask you this. You know, like you talk about like you were noticing that little bit of passion and that spark and love when they were separated or not separated, but when he was in the U.S., right?
Right, right.
Kind of just thinking about it now and like reflecting. Do you feel like they have like created more of a love? Because you said that's like how it is with arranged marriages for you guys. Like it doesn't
Of
start
course,
off as
we
like
fall
you
in love.
yeah, it doesn't start off like you are in love with that person. You are supposed to, or
Grow
however,
into it.
build that
Yeah.
love. So do you feel like
Mhm.
you've seen their love strengthen, or do you feel like it's still not where you
I would
ideally
say,
think it should be?
so I can't say like, and we're gonna also talk on this, like, every relationship is different. Like,
Right.
so I can't personally say like you're doing it completely wrong to them because
Right.
this is all they know. But my definition of love does not equate to what they are. You know what I mean? Because I think theirs is from practicality and from them being together for so long, from having us and having this family. They love us without a doubt, and they love each other without a doubt. But are they in love? No, I don't. I like. Are they in love? No, and that's what I want. I want to be in love, and they're not in love. They're just loving each other.
Yeah.
What about you? Like, I mean, let's talk about like, because I know you're dynamic, B, but like, tell them, like, I want to hear more about. We know your mama is alpha female. Shout out. But what about your dad? Like, he's amazing too. But talk on the
I
topics, like,
know.
how did he affect you? How did his relationship with Tammy, your stepmom, affect you too? And
Yeah.
then how did your parents' relationship as when they broke apart with you? Like, how did that affect you?
Yeah. It's it's definitely a wild ride. Like I had a blessed childhood. There's no doubt about it. But there was also some things I wish I wouldn't have seen as a kid.
Mhm.
I would say just to kind of touch on the first part of your topic. For one, I'm a daddy's girl, so I'm always a ride or
Yes.
die for my dad. But he's also an alpha female, so that's why
Alpha male. What is wrong with you?
he's an alpha male, dude. I
It's
can't
okay.
say it right. He's an alpha male, so I think with my mom being alpha female, and my dad being alpha male, it was
Classy
it's
head.
it's clashing. So like that, you in a relationship, sometimes you need to be submissive a little bit,
Yes.
for give and take. So that makes all the sense now, why their little thing didn't work. But I definitely feel like with my dad, he very similar to my mom. He was way more boisterous with his relationship with my stepmother, and she was way more submissive. And you know, he has he's very vocal and he does not know how to communicate in the best way sometimes, which
Mhm.
he knows he has to work on those things. But it was very much like my mother, his way or the highway. And just kind of seeing that, I just, seeing their relationship and then going back to my mom's home and seeing her relationship, I seen a lot of what I didn't want and very little of what I did want in a relationship.
Right.
So I feel like that's so hard, especially for a young girl. We crave that love naturally and that idea of being with someone. So I feel like it kind of like hindered me sometimes in my relationship because I think that I try so hard and I'm like very serious when it comes to relationship and marriage when it gets to that point that I want to make sure that it doesn't turn into anything that I've seen. You know what I'm saying? Like to get
No,
deeper.
100%.
I fear that. I really do. And I'm sure a lot of you can attest to that. However your parents were, whether they were a great example or not, there's things that you've seen that you may not want to, bring into your relationship in the future. And I
Right.
definitely feel like for me, that's exactly what it was. I didn't want, to see someone being the only decision maker. I wanted a team,
Exactly.
a
Hmm.
teammate, more of togetherness.
Partnership. Exactly.
Togetherness is huge for me. So just kind of like reflecting on that, it was just, like just seeing those things and also the dynamic between my mom and my dad, even though they had a child together, it was like they couldn't co-parent, to be completely
Hmm.
honest. I
How
don't
did your
know.
parents like? I know. Sorry for cutting you out, but like, I just wanted to touch on that really quickly. Like, especially co-parenting at such a young age. Like, how did they
Yeah,
deal with that? Because for my parents, as you know, it was literally, my mom was a single mom technically, but she had like a whole community around her as she was
Yeah.
raising me and the twins. How is it with your parents, especially because of the dynamic of how they clash?
Yeah, well, it takes a village to raise a child. So it's amazing that your mom had that support. But for mine, I would say for my parents, on top of the fact that they were young and I was their first child, they were kind of learning as they were going. So, and, we also have to think about how their parents were too. And I feel like
Exactly.
I've had those conversations with my parents, kind of just giving us little advice here. If you're comfortable talking with your parents about their
There-
parents, and how
mhm.
they grew up, you'll learn so much and understand why they are the way that they are. So I would dive into that because I can talk about that too, and it makes complete sense. My mom's father was not in her life, and so I feel like that works perfectly into my
Wow.
mom's relationship with my dad.
All
She
strong women, like when
exactly.
strong
So it was
woman.
like she never had that father figure. And that's so sad because a father is so important. Me being a daddy's
So
girl, like I couldn't imagine who I would be without my father. So I feel like, her seeing that and her never having a father figure or a father role in her life kind of like, made her have that, men ain't shit kind of attitude too. So therefore she kind of transferred that over on my dad where it was like, he's a man trying
mhm.
to be a father. Like my dad worked his tail off for 18 plus years to be in my life, with the court system. For those that don't know, it's very in the woman's hand. It's the upper hand for the woman. So,
Yes.
I've had to go to court and, fight for my dad, so it was hard for sure. It was worth it because it kind of made it better in the end, but those things I definitely struggled with as a kid, acting like everything was okay. I'm generally a happy person, so I never
She
really
is.
showed it
She
inside.
smiles all the time.
Exactly. But those things kind of like as a young age, I feel like I shouldn't have had to go to court for something that two grown
100%.
people could have handled, together. So it just is what it is. But honestly, that was like kind of the dynamic for me and kind of what I seen growing up and having to deal with your own parents.
Right.
I love them to death. I wouldn't be who I am today without them, and
Exactly.
I'm blessed. So yeah, I would say that's kind of what it was for me. Would you say like had your parents not been like traditional, like let's just say that they were like born here, do you feel like maybe there would have been some differences? Like, because I know you had to assimilate and stuff. Do you feel like they have assimilated for one with their relationship in the US?
Their relationship, I wouldn't say no. They're still like, very no PDA, nothing like that. I mean, I've never seen them kiss or hug. Like,
Really?
yes, maybe when I was super small, but I've never seen that shit.
Is that normal, like to not
Yeah,
show the kids that? Okay.
yeah, yeah. So, but for like, I've always seen a semblance of respect, I guess, because my mother has like, respect, of course. And but for me growing up, I had a lot of animosity towards my father. I had a lot of animosity, period. Okay, just just because it was like
It's
like I was,
understandable.
yeah, I was always very self-aware. I was always very, very aware, and I was always like confused as to why I was being treated different from my brothers who were younger than me. And like I was like literally like the second mom almost, because I always made sure to take care of everyone. So I never understood why I didn't get the acknowledgement of how responsible I am.
Yeah.
So and that's literally because of how they grew up. But I wouldn't say they assimilated. But as I grew up and as I started breaking away from those boundaries and those limits that they set for me, they saw that they couldn't rein me in, and it was like reining me in, because of the gender role implemented in our culture, not our religion, in our culture, you know so it's just like it frustrated me a lot growing up to see all of that, but I do love them dearly. Like, I mean, like you said, I would not be here without them. Like,
Exactly. It's so crazy because we are over like we see everything we didn't want. You know what I'm saying? And like you just think about it as a kid, like seeing all that stuff, and like sometimes you don't even realize what's going
no,
on when you're a kid, but when you kind of grow up and now you're in a relationship and it's like,
no,
holy shit, like
we
like
really
I'm
went through
literally
it.
yes, you lived through that and like you're noticing like, holy crap, like you're like your dad. And I'll be like, oh my God, I'm like my mom. And like I'm like my dad a lot too, but sometimes in a relationship I can be like my mother. And
Yes.
so it's just crazy, kind of how that works out, like subconsciously, like we're what you see is kind of like who you become sometimes in the
I
weirdest
tried
way.
so hard, like I mentioned, I tried so hard breaking away from like not being like either of my parents. I remember when I was younger, like I would literally submerge myself in books. And what I would do is if I liked a character a lot, I would like start acting like that character in real life. And
Aw,
it's not it's like weird now thinking back on it. But it's like,
cool.
it's kind of cool because it helped me psychologically because it literally helped me be like, nah, 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 this is not the life I'm gonna live. But at
Right.
the end of the day, like we're gonna talk in our next episode.
Yes. Tune
But
in. This is
tune
part
in, you guys.
one.
Yes. But like just to really briefly let you guys know, like my relationship now is I think a mix of what I experience and how hard I try to be different and more positive, you know? Like I
Yeah.
really want to become, like I said, that foundation is so important. And unfortunately, my parents didn't have a genuine organic foundation. I want to make sure that it's like genuine and
Mhm.
it's hard, y'all. It's hard as fuck.
It's hard. Relationships are hard for sure, especially at a younger age, you know, where you're 23, I'm turning 23. So it's just like kind of
These
just
are our selfish years. These
Yeah,
are our
that's
selfish
weird.
years.
And you have 2 different spectrums, like, you have friends that are going out and, like, being their best self, like, traveling, having fun, going out, and then you have some folks that are getting married, settling down, having kids, and just,
Exactly.
like, we're kinda in the middle to where we're like, we're gonna be us and, like, travel and do that fun stuff we're supposed to at our age, but we also want that, you know,
Yeah,
settling
like,
down in
come
the
on,
future.
let's plan it.
Right. So I definitely feel like, you know, guys, stay tuned. This episode was more just talking about the background and kind of who we are and how our childhood created, you know, the people that we are today and in our relationships more specifically. So tune into episode or part 2 of this episode here. We're going to get into
We'll
relationship
go into the
stuff.
juicy bits of
Exactly. So
our
tune in. If you haven't already, go subscribe on YouTube. Voice
yes,
Follow us on Instagram, like, share, comment, all that good
everything.
stuff.
Also, comment down below if you guys relate to any of this or
Yes.
how you experience your experience because we love reading it and we just love talking about these things. So go
Yes.
ahead and let us know.
All right,
Right.
y'all. Bye.
Bye.